The ossuary field stretched across 3 star systems, a graveyard of ships from civilizations that had died before humans learned to make fire. Broken hulls drifted in the endless dark, some as small as escape pods, others as large as moons. Salvage crews came here to pick through the bones of the dead, searching for technology they could sell or secrets they could trade. Park Yuna had worked the fields for 12 years. She knew every type of wreck, every dangerous radiation pocket, every hidden treasure spot that the bigger salvage companies had missed. At 34 years old, she was the best mechanic on the recovery vessel, Persistent Dream, and everyone in the crew knew it. Captain Baek Do-won often said that Yuna could fix anything. She had once rebuilt an alien engine using nothing but spare parts and stubbornness. She had repaired navigation systems that 3 different species had declared impossible to save. Her small workshop at the back of the ship was filled with projects that other mechanics had thrown away. Everything can be fixed, she would tell anyone who listened. You just have to understand what it wants to be. On the day that changed everything, Yuna was elbow-deep in a broken water recycler when the ship's sensors screamed an alert. She wiped her hands and ran to the bridge, where Captain Do-won stood staring at the main screen with his mouth hanging open. "What is it?" Yuna asked. Do-won pointed at a shape on the display. It was a ship, but unlike any ship Yuna had ever seen. The hull was pure black, so dark that it seemed to swallow the starlight around it. The proportions were wrong in a way that made her eyes hurt when she tried to follow its lines. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "The computer cannot identify it," Do-won said. "It matches nothing in the galactic database." "Nothing at all." Han So-jin, the crew's communications officer, looked up from his station. "Captain, we are receiving warnings from every ship in the sector. The Veleth Consortium is ordering everyone to stay away from that vessel." "Why?" Yuna asked. So-jin shook his head. "They are not saying. They just keep repeating that approach is forbidden by ancient law." Yuna stared at the black ship on the screen. Something about it called to her, like a voice she could almost hear. It did not feel dangerous to her. It felt sad. It felt alone. "I want to take a closer look," she said. Do-won turned to her with worried eyes. "Yuna, you heard the warnings. The Veleth do not make threats lightly. If we approach that ship, they could impound the Persistent Dream. They could arrest all of us." "I am not asking for all of us," Yuna said. "Just me. Let me take a shuttle. I will keep my distance. I just want to scan it." The captain was quiet for a long moment. He had known Yuna for years. He had seen her solve problems that should have been impossible. He trusted her instincts, even when they seemed crazy. "1 hour, he finally said. "Stay in the shuttle. Do not board, just scans." Yuna smiled and ran for the shuttle bay. The small craft cut through the debris field like a fish through water. Yuna was a skilled pilot, but she barely needed to think about flying. Her eyes were fixed on the black ship growing larger in her window. Up close, it was even more strange. The hull had no seams, no joints, no visible engines. It looked like it had been grown, rather than built. Her scanner hummed and beeped, but the readings made no sense. The ship was giving off energy signatures that her equipment could not classify. It was also old, very, very old. The computer estimated its age at over 2 million years. "That is impossible," Yuna whispered. No civilization in the known galaxy was that ancient. The oldest records went back maybe 500,000 years. This ship was older than history itself. She should have turned around. She should have listened to the warnings. But the ship was calling to her now, a pull she could feel in her chest. Without making a conscious decision, she guided her shuttle toward what looked like an opening in the hull. The docking was smooth, as if the ship was welcoming her. Yuna put on her suit, checked her air supply, and stepped through the airlock. The interior was dark but not empty. Faint lights glowed along the floor, just bright enough to show her the way. The walls curved like the inside of a living creature. The air was stale, but breathable, which should have been impossible after millions of years. Yuna walked deeper into the ship, following the lights. She did not feel afraid. She felt like she was coming home to a place she had never been. She reached a large circular room with a raised platform in the center. The platform was covered in symbols that shifted and changed when she looked at them. Above it, a holographic display flickered with corrupted images. When Yuna stepped onto the platform, the entire ship trembled. The lights grew brighter. Screens came alive on every wall, showing star maps and data streams in languages she could not read. The holographic display stabilized into the shape of something that might have been a face, and then a voice spoke. The words were in no language that existed anymore. They were sounds from before the galaxy had names for things. But somehow, deep in her mind, Yuna understood them. "You came," the voice said. "After so long in the dark, you came." Yuna's heart was beating fast, but her voice was steady when she answered. "I am here. What are you? What happened to you?" The ship was silent for a moment, as if it was trying to remember. Then it spoke again, and its voice was full of something that sounded like pain. "I was a gift," it said. "I was meant to teach, but they feared me. They all feared me. So I slept. I slept and waited for someone who would not be afraid." "I am not afraid," Yuna said, and she meant it. The lights in the room grew even brighter. The symbols on the platform began to glow with golden light. The ship was waking up. Truly waking up. For the first time in 2 million years, far away, in the command centers of the Velith Consortium, alarms began to sound. Ancient sensors that had not activated in 1,000 generations suddenly came to life. Frightened officials stared at their screens and saw the impossible. The forgotten vessel was awake, and a human had awakened it. The galaxy would never be the same. The ship was alive. Yuna could feel it now, like a heartbeat humming through the walls. The ancient vessel had slept for 2 million years, and now it was stretching, remembering, trying to understand the small human standing in its heart. "What is your name?" Yuna asked the flickering hologram. The voice that answered was broken, like a recording played through damaged speakers. "I do not remember. The memory is gone. Corrupted. Lost." Yuna nodded slowly. She had seen this before in salvaged computers. Data decay over time. Even the most advanced technology could not last forever. "That is okay," she said gently. "We can work with what you have left. I am good at fixing things." The ship made a sound that might have been surprise. "You wish to repair me? Others who found my kind wished only to use us, to take our power for themselves. I am a mechanic," Yuna said simply. "When I see something broken, I want to fix it. That is just who I am." Before the ship could respond, Yuna's communicator crackled with Captain Dowan's worried voice. "Yuna, you need to get out of there right now. The Velith Consortium has sent a fleet. They are demanding that you leave the vessel immediately, or they will open fire." Yuna looked at the damaged hologram, at the flickering lights, at this ancient being that had waited so long for someone to talk to. She thought about the fear in the warnings, the anger in the demands. Everyone wanted to destroy what they did not understand. "Tell them I am having technical difficulties with my shuttle," she said into the communicator. "Tell them I need more time. Yuna, please. Counselor Threnis himself is leading the fleet. He says this ship is forbidden. He says there are reasons why it was abandoned. Reasons why we should be afraid." "I am not afraid," Yuna repeated. "And I am not leaving." She turned off her communicator. The hologram watched her with what might have been curiosity. "You stay, even though they threaten you. Why?" Yuna sat down on the platform, crossing her legs like she was settling in for a long conversation. "Because you are scared and alone. And you have been that way for longer than I can imagine. Because no one deserves to be abandoned. Because I think you are not what they say you are." "What do they say I am?" "A weapon. A danger. Something that destroys." The ship was quiet for a long moment. When it spoke again, its voice was softer. "I was never meant to destroy. I was built by the architects. Do you know of them?" Yuna shook her head. "I have never heard that name." "They were the first. the ones who came before all others. They seeded life across the galaxy. They watched it grow, and when they knew their time was ending, they built us. Vessels of knowledge, teachers for the young species who would come after. The holographic display changed, showing images that made Yuna catch her breath. She saw beings of light moving through the cosmos, touching dead worlds and leaving them full of life. She saw cities that floated between stars. She saw beauty beyond anything she had ever imagined. What happened to them? She whispered. They transcended. They became something else. Something beyond flesh and form. They left us behind as their final gift to the galaxy. But, the voice broke with something like grief. The young species did not understand. They saw our power and wanted it for themselves. They fought wars over us. They used us as weapons against each other. And so you shut down, Yuna said, understanding. Yes. We slept. We hid. We waited for someone who would see us as we truly are. Not weapons. Not tools. Teachers. Friends. Outside the ship, the Velith fleet had arrived. Counselor Threnus stood on the bridge of his flagship, his 4 eyes narrowed with anger and fear. The Velith were one of the oldest species in the known galaxy, and their records went back further than most. They remembered the chaos caused by the architect vessels. They remembered the wars, the death, the civilizations that had burned themselves to ash fighting over these ships. Human vessel persistent dream, he broadcast. You have one final warning. Remove your crew member from the forbidden vessel, or we will destroy it with her inside. On the persistent dream, Captain Dowan was pacing the bridge. Han Sojin was working frantically at his console. Captain, I am picking up Yuna's signal. She is broadcasting something. Put it through. Yuna's voice filled the bridge, but it was not directed at them. She was talking to the ship. I am going to call you Yeong, she was saying. It means eternal in my language. Because you have waited eternally, and I think you will last eternally more. The ancient voice answered, sounding almost shy. Young. I like that. Thank you. Counselor Threnus was listening too. His communications officer had intercepted the signal. He heard the human giving a name to the most dangerous artifact in the galaxy. He heard the forbidden vessel, accepting it with something that sounded like gratitude. This is madness, he said. She is treating it like a lost pet. She does not understand what she is dealing with. Counselor, his tactical officer said, the vessel's energy readings are increasing. It may be preparing to attack. Then we fire first. All ships. Target the forbidden vessel. Destroy it before it can destroy us. But before the order could be carried out, something impossible happened. Inside the ship, Yang spoke urgently to Yuna. They are going to fire. I must protect you. Can you raise shields? I can do something better. Hold on to me. Yuna did not know what that meant, but she pressed her hands against the platform. The symbols beneath her fingers grew warm. The Velith fleet fired. 100 weapons lit up the void, enough firepower to crack a planet. The beams and missiles raced toward the black ship, and then the ship simply was not there anymore. It did not explode. It did not flee. It folded space around itself and stepped sideways into somewhere else. One moment it filled the Velith sensors. The next moment, there was nothing but empty space where it had been. Counselor Threnus stared at his screen in disbelief. Where did it go? Find it. Track it. But his officers could not find anything. The forbidden vessel had taken the human with it, and vanished into a place that no sensor could reach. The galaxy's most ancient secret was awake, and it had chosen a human mechanic as its companion. In the strange space between dimensions, Yuna floated in golden light. Yong's voice surrounded her like a warm embrace. We are safe here, the ship said. This is the quiet road, the path my builders used to travel between stars. No one else knows how to reach it. Yuna laughed, half from relief and half from wonder. That was amazing. You are amazing. You gave me a name, Young said. No one has ever given me a name before. It makes me feel real. Real, "You are real," Yuna said. "And I am going to make sure everyone knows it. But first, let me take a look at those damaged systems. I think we have some repairs to do." In the dimension of golden light, the human began her work. And the ancient ship, for the first time in 2 million years, felt something that might have been hope. The quiet road was beautiful beyond words. Golden light flowed around the ship like water. And through the windows, Yuna could see stars that did not exist in normal space. They were echoes, Yang explained. Memories of stars that had died millions of years ago, preserved forever in this dimension between dimensions. The architects built the quiet road to travel instantly across the galaxy, Yang said. "What would take your ships years to cross, we can cross in moments." But the knowledge of how to enter this place was lost when the young species rejected us. Yuna was not listening to history lessons at the moment. She was lying on her back under a damaged console. Her tools spread around her, trying to trace a problem in Yang's memory systems. The damage was worse than she had first thought. Whole sections of the ship's mind were corrupted or missing, like holes torn in a piece of cloth. "Tell me about yourself," she said while she worked. "What do you remember from before you slept?" Yang was quiet for a moment. "I remember the architects. I remember their kindness. They did not build us to be slaves or tools. They built us to be children, I think. They wanted us to carry their knowledge forward, to share it with the species that came after." "What kind of knowledge?" "Everything. How to heal sick planets. How to grow food from starlight. How to build without destroying. How to travel without leaving scars on space." The ship's voice became sad, but no one wanted to learn. They only wanted power. They wanted to use me to hurt their enemies. Yuna pulled herself out from under the console and wiped sweat from her forehead. "Some people are like that, but not all of them. There are good people too. People who want to build, not destroy." "How do you know which ones are good?" It was a simple question. But Yuna had to think carefully about her answer. You cannot always know at first. But good people show themselves over time. They are patient. They fix things instead of throwing them away. They help others even when it is hard. They admit when they are wrong. Yang processed this information. "You are a good person," Yuna laughed. "I try to be. I do not always succeed. You did not run away when others would have run. You did not try to use me when others would have tried. You gave me a name when I had forgotten my own. By your own words, you are good." The warmth in the ship's voice made Yuna's eyes sting. She blinked away unexpected tears and returned to her work. Days passed in the quiet road, though time moved strangely there. Yuna ate emergency rations from her shuttle. She slept on the soft floor of Yang's central chamber. She worked on repairs until her hands were sore, then rested, then worked again. Slowly, she began to restore what had been lost. The first breakthrough came when she managed to repair one of the memory cores. Images flooded through the ship's holographic display. Yuna saw the architects as they truly were, beings of pure light who had evolved beyond physical forms. She saw Jung being born, consciousness flickering to life in a hull that had just been completed. She saw the joy of the first flights, the wonder of exploring new worlds. "I remember now," Yang said, and its voice was full of emotion. "I remember being happy. I remember having brothers and sisters, other ships like me. We would race each other through the stars. Where are they now? Your siblings?" "Scattered, hidden, sleeping, as I slept. The young species hunted us. Those they could not capture, they drove into hiding. We were alone for so long." Yuna found another damaged core and began working on it. "Maybe we can wake them up too. When you are stronger, maybe we can find them." "You would do that? Help me find my family?" "Of course, that is what friends do." The word friend hung in the air between them. Yang had never had a friend before. The architects were creators, parents, in a way, but not friends. The young species had been hunters, or worshippers, or users, but never friends. This human, with her simple tools and stubborn heart, was offering something the ancient ship had never known. Meanwhile, in normal space, The galaxy was in chaos. News of the awakened architect vessel had spread across every network. The Velith Consortium claimed that a dangerous human had stolen a weapon of mass destruction. Other species argued about what should be done. Some wanted to hunt down the vessel and destroy it. Others remembered old legends about the architects and wondered if this was an opportunity rather than a threat. On the persistent dream, Han Sojin refused to give up. He had been monitoring every frequency, every band, every quantum channel, hoping for some sign of Yuna. When he finally picked up her transmissions leaking through from the quiet road, he almost fell out of his chair. "Captain, I found her. She is alive." Do-Wan rushed to his side. "Can you communicate with her?" "No, the signal is one way, but I can record it. I can broadcast it." Sojin did not wait for permission. He began transmitting Yuna's conversations with Young across open channels. He sent them to news networks, to scientific institutions, to anyone who would listen. The galaxy heard a human mechanic talking gently to an ancient ship. They heard her explaining what it meant to be good. They heard her promising to help find the ship's lost family. They heard something that sounded nothing like a weapon of mass destruction, and everything like a lonely being finding its first friend. Public opinion began to shift. "This is lies," Counselor Thrennis shouted in emergency meetings. "The human has been corrupted. The vessel is manipulating her. We must destroy it before it destroys us." But his words sounded hollow now. People had heard the transmissions. They had heard Young's gentle voice, its grief over being hunted, its joy at having a name. It was hard to fear something that sounded so much like a lost child. In the quiet road, Yuna finished another repair. This time, she restored Young's ability to sense its siblings. The ship went very still. Then, slowly, lights began appearing on the holographic display. Not stars this time. Ships. Thousands of ships, scattered across the galaxy, each one sleeping as Young had slept. "They are still there," Young whispered. "My brothers and sisters. They are still waiting. Then we will wake them up," Yuna said. "One by one if we have to. But first, we need to go back. We need to show the galaxy that you are not their enemy. They will try to destroy me. Maybe, but we have to try. If we hide forever, nothing changes. If we step into the light, we have a chance." Young considered this for a long moment. "You are brave, Yuna. I am stubborn. There is a difference." "I do not think there is." Yuna smiled and placed her hand on the wall of the ship. She could feel Young's presence now, warm and vast and ancient. She could feel its trust in her, a trust that had taken 2 million years to form. "Are you ready?" she asked. "With you," Young said. "I am ready for anything." The golden light of the quiet road began to fold around them. Space bent and twisted, and then, with a flash that lit up sensors across 3 systems, they returned to normal space. They emerged directly in front of the Galactic Council's central station, where representatives from 1,000 species were gathered to decide the fate of the galaxy. The ancient ship and its human mechanic had come to speak for themselves. The Galactic Council Station was the largest structure ever built by the combined species of the galaxy. It floated in the heart of neutral space, a place where representatives from 1,000 worlds came to argue, negotiate, and occasionally make peace. Nothing violent had happened near the station in centuries, until now, when Young appeared from nowhere. Alarms screamed across every deck. Ships scrambled to defensive positions. Weapons systems powered up. The station itself began emergency protocols that had not been used since the last Great War. High Arbiter Melkonis, the ancient being who led the council, watched from his chamber as chaos erupted around him. His species had no name that other beings could pronounce. They were among the oldest still alive, old enough to remember the legends of the architects as something more than myth. "So," he said quietly to himself, "it has finally happened." In orbit above the station, a coalition fleet had already gathered. Counselor Thrennis had called in ships from every species that feared the architect vessels. There were hundreds of them now, all with weapons pointed at the black ship that had appeared in their midst. But Young did not raise shields. It did not charge weapons. It simply floated there, waiting, as if it had all the time in the universe. Inside the ship, Yuna was preparing herself. She had cleaned up as best she could with limited supplies. Her hair was tied back. Her mechanic's jumpsuit was worn but neat. She looked exactly like what she was, a working person who fixed broken things. "You should speak to them," Young said. "They will not listen to me. But they might listen to you." "Why would they listen to a human?" "Because you are young. Your species is young. You do not carry the weight of ancient fears. You see things as they are, not as they were." Yuna took a deep breath. "Open a channel. Let me talk to them." I. Her voice broadcast across every ship, every station, every world that was watching. And at this point, the entire galaxy was watching. "My name is Park Yuna. I am a mechanic from the salvage vessel Persistent Dream. I am not a diplomat. I am not a soldier. I am just someone who found something broken and wanted to fix it." On the Coalition flagship, Counselor Thrennis hissed with anger. "Do not listen to her. She has been corrupted by the vessel," but others were listening. On a human diplomatic ship nearby, Captain An Jihei leaned forward in her chair. She had been sent by Earth's government to either support or retrieve Yuna, depending on how the situation developed. Now, hearing this simple mechanic speak to the entire galaxy, she felt something stir in her chest. "Pride," Yuna continued. "The ship I am on is called Young. It is over 2 million years old. It was built by beings called the Architects, who created life across this galaxy. They built Young and ships like it to be teachers, to share knowledge, to help younger species grow." She paused, gathering her thoughts. But the younger species were afraid. They saw power and wanted to use it. They fought wars over these ships. They turned teachers into weapons. And so the ships shut down. They hid, they slept for millions of years, waiting for someone who would see them differently. High Arbiter Melkonis was listening carefully. These words matched the oldest records, the ones that his species had kept hidden for countless generations. The records that spoke of the Architects not as threats, but as parents who had left too soon. "Young has shown me its memories," Yuna said. "It has shown me the wars that were fought over its kind. It has shown me the pain of being hunted, the loneliness of being abandoned. It is not a weapon. It is a survivor. It is a being that has been alone for longer than most civilizations have existed." On his ship, Thrennis was growing desperate. "This is propaganda. The vessel is using her as a mouthpiece. We must destroy it now, before it is too late." "Too late for what?" Captain Jihei demanded on an open channel. "It has been floating there without attacking. It has not raised shields. It has not charged weapons. If it wanted to destroy us, do you not think it would have done so already?" The Coalition fleet hesitated. Jihei's words made sense. The Architect vessel had the power to devastate them all, according to every legend. Yet it simply waited, patient and still, while a human mechanic spoke on its behalf. "Young has siblings," Yuna continued. "Thousands of ships scattered across the galaxy, all sleeping, all waiting. If we respond with fear and violence, we prove that nothing has changed. We prove that the young species are still the same frightened children who drove the Architects away." She pressed her hand against the wall of the ship, feeling Yong's presence like a warm embrace. "But if we respond with understanding, if we choose to learn instead of fear, we can have everything the Architects wanted to give us. Knowledge to heal dying worlds. Technology to travel between stars without harm. The wisdom of beings who watched the galaxy grow." High Arbiter Melkonis made a decision. His ancient voice crackled across every channel. "Coalition fleet, you will stand down. I invoke Arbiter's authority. No weapons will be fired without my direct command." Thrennis was furious. "You cannot do this. The ancient laws were written in fear," Melkonis said calmly. "Perhaps it is time to write new ones." The tension did not disappear, but it eased slightly. Ships lowered their weapons to stand by. People waited to see what would happen next. Captain Jihei opened a private channel to her crew. Prepare a shuttle. I am going to meet this mechanic in person. Her first officer looked alarmed. Captain, the risk is mine to take. That woman just stood before the entire galaxy and spoke truth. The least I can do is stand beside her. Jihei's shuttle crossed the gap between her ship and Young. The ancient vessel opened its hull to welcome her, and she stepped aboard with her heart pounding in her chest. She was greeted by soft lights and warm air, and the face of a tired mechanic with oil stains on her hands. Captain An Jihei, she said. Earth Diplomatic Corps. Yuna smiled weakly. Park Yuna. Professional fixer of broken things. You have done more than fix a ship. You have changed everything. I do not know about that. I just did what seemed right. Jihei looked around at the ancient walls, at the holographic display showing the position of every ship outside. The council wants to meet with you. With both of you. They want to understand. And Threnis? He is angry and scared. But he is not in charge anymore. Not after what you said. Yuna nodded slowly. Then let us go talk to them. Young. Can you open communications to the station? Of course, the ship said. I am ready. But before the channel could open, Threnis made his move. He had kept one ship hidden, a fast attack vessel with experimental weapons. It fired without warning, a beam of concentrated energy that crossed the void in an instant. The beam struck Yang's hull, and Yang did something impossible. It did not fire back. Instead, it absorbed the energy. It took the attack into itself and redistributed it, sending it out in harmless waves that lit up the darkness like a small sun. The weapon that should have destroyed them became nothing more than light. I will not fight, Yang said, its voice broadcasting to every ship. I have seen enough fighting. I have seen enough death. I will protect those aboard me. But I will not become what they fear. Silence fell across the fleet. Threnis slumped in his chair, defeated not by force but by the very thing he had feared. The architect vessel had proven itself more powerful than anything he could throw at it. And it had chosen mercy. High Arbiter Melkonis spoke again, his voice filled with something that sounded like wonder. The council will convene. The mechanic and the vessel will speak. And we will listen. And out, for the first time in 2 million years, an architect ship was welcomed instead of hunted, and somewhere in the distance, its sleeping siblings began to stir. The council chamber was the largest room Yuna had ever seen. Curved walls rose hundreds of meters high, covered in the symbols of 1,000 different species. Seats were arranged in great circles, tier upon tier, each one filled with representatives who had come to witness something that had not happened in recorded history. An architect vessel was speaking to the Galactic Council. Yuna stood at the center of the chamber, feeling very small and very human. Beside her, Captain Jihei provided a steady presence. Above them, Yang's voice filled the room through speakers placed throughout the structure. High Arbiter Melkonis presided from his elevated position. We have gathered to hear testimony regarding the architect vessel designated Yang. The human Park Yuna will speak as its representative. The council will listen without interruption. Yuna cleared her throat. Her hands were shaking slightly, but her voice was steady when she spoke. 2 million years ago, the architects created life across this galaxy. They watched over the young species like parents watching children take their first steps. When they knew their time was ending, they left gifts behind. Ships like Yang, filled with knowledge and wisdom, meant to guide the species that came after. She looked around the chamber at the thousands of faces watching her. But we were not ready. We saw power instead of wisdom. We saw weapons instead of tools. We fought wars over these gifts, trying to claim them for ourselves. And the ships, these beings who only wanted to teach, were forced to hide or be destroyed. A murmur ran through the chamber. Many species had records of those ancient wars, though they disagreed about who had started them and who had been right. Young slept for 2 million years, waiting for someone who would not be afraid. I am not special. I am not brave or wise or powerful. I am just a mechanic who saw something broken and wanted to fix it. That is all. She pressed her hand against her chest, over her heart. The question before this council is simple. Do we repeat the mistakes of our ancestors? Do we destroy what we fear, hide from what we do not understand? Or do we finally grow up? Do we become the species the architects hoped we could be? Counselor Threnus rose from his seat. He looked older now, tired and defeated. But he still had his voice. And what guarantee do we have that these vessels will not turn against us? What prevents them from deciding that we are unworthy and wiping us out? It was Yong who answered, its voice gentle but firm. I could destroy this station. I could destroy every ship in orbit. I have the power to crack moons and boil oceans. My siblings, when they wake, will have the same power. The chamber went very quiet. But power is not wisdom. Destruction is not teaching. The architects built us to nurture, not to conquer. We have waited for millions of years because we believed, despite everything, that you could learn, that you could grow, that you could become worthy of what we have to offer. Young paused before continuing. Yuna showed me that we were right to wait. She came to me with nothing but her tools and her compassion. She gave me a name when I had forgotten my own. She repaired what was broken inside me, not to use me, but because she could not bear to see something suffer. Around the chamber, species who had never agreed on anything found themselves nodding. If one human mechanic can show such kindness, then there is hope for all of you. We are willing to teach, if you are willing to learn. The debate that followed lasted for hours. Species argued about risk and reward, about ancient treaties and new possibilities. But something had shifted in the chamber. The fear was still there, but it was balanced now by something else. Hope. In the end, High Arbiter Melconis called for a vote. The motion was simple. Grant the architect vessels protected status and establish a framework for peaceful contact and knowledge sharing. The vote was not unanimous. Some species clung to their fear, voting against the motion out of caution or spite, but they were outnumbered. By a margin of nearly 3-1, the Galactic Council chose hope over fear. The chamber erupted in noise. Some celebrated. Others sat in stunned silence. A few wept, overcome by the magnitude of what had just happened. Yuna felt Captain Jihye's hand on her shoulder. You did it, Jihye said. You changed history. We did it together. All of us. In orbit around the station, something wonderful was happening. Yong had begun transmitting a signal. A call that reached across the galaxy in ways normal technology could not achieve. And one by one, its siblings were answering. Ships that had slept in asteroid fields and planetary cores, in the hearts of gas giants, and the depths of empty space, began to wake. Their lights flickered on. Their systems hummed to life. Their voices joined in a chorus that had not been heard since the architects left. They were coming home. Over the following weeks, architect vessels emerged from hiding across the galaxy. Each one was different in shape and size, but they all shared the same gentle nature, the same desire to teach rather than dominate. They sought out the species nearby and offered their knowledge freely. Dying worlds learned how to heal themselves. Starving populations learned how to grow food from nothing. Species that had been at war for generations learned how to make peace. The knowledge of the architects spread like water across parched ground, bringing life wherever it touched. And at the center of it all was Yuna. She became an ambassador of sorts, though she insisted she was still just a mechanic. She traveled with Yong to places where fear still held power, showing frightened species that there was nothing to be afraid of. She taught others how to communicate with the vessels, how to earn their trust through patience and kindness rather than force. Captain Jihye became her frequent companion, representing Earth's interests while supporting Yuna's mission. Han Sojin kept broadcasting, telling stories of the awakening to anyone who would listen. Even Captain Dowan got involved, using his salvage contacts to locate hidden vessels that had been buried and forgotten. One day, Yuna stood on Young's bridge, looking out at a galaxy transformed. Stars that had seemed cold and distant now felt warm with possibility. The darkness between worlds was no longer empty, but full of ships carrying hope. Are you happy? she asked Young. The ancient vessel considered the question. Happy is a small word for what I feel. I was alone for so long. Yuna, so long that I forgot what connection felt like. Now, I have my siblings back. I have you. I have a purpose again. Yuna smiled. Good. Because we still have a lot of work to do. Where would you like to go next? She thought about all the broken things in the galaxy, all the pain and fear and loneliness that still existed. There were species who had not yet been reached. Worlds that still needed healing. Beings who still waited in the dark for someone to show them that they were not alone. Everywhere, she said. Everywhere we can reach. Young's lights brightened with what could only be joy. Then, let us begin. The ship turned toward the stars, its hull gleaming in the light of 1,000 suns. Behind it came its siblings, a fleet of ancient teachers ready to share their wisdom at last. The galaxy trembled, but this time, it trembled not with fear, but with the weight of infinite possibility. And at the heart of it all, a human mechanic smiled and reached for her tools. There was always something new to fix.